Well, Anna Sarwar is the leader of the party in Scotland. He's with us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming down. I hope your voice is going to hold out.
I know it's that post-by-election and conference, the throat's playing up, but we'll get through it, I'm sure.
We will. You've been speaking to people, for the last 48 hours here relentlessly. You told a Fringe event yesterday that you're looking to go into the 2026 Scottish parliamentary elections to form a minority Labour government in your own right. Are you getting a bit ahead of yourself here?
Well, look, I was asked a question about what would happen in 2026 if Labour was the largest party. Would we seek to form a minority government? And the answer to that is yes. But you're absolutely right to say, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Of course, that is the ambition. Of course, that is the plan. But we still have a lot of work to do. And look, we made huge strides with the Rutherglen-Hamilton West by-election. I believe Scottish politics has fundamentally changed. But feet on the ground...
Really?
Absolutely. I think that seismic shift is historic.
But we keep hearing this word seismic used about the by-election result last week, and it feels like it's going a little overboard. The seat became vacant in highly unusual circumstances. Only around a third of the electorate turned out to vote. You got more votes in 2019 when you lost the SNP in that general that by-election.
But Lord, can I just tell you what I mean by that? Is the turnout was still higher than it was in Adrian Shotts. I'm not saying the turnout was as high as we'd like it to be, for example, that it is in general elections, but turnouts are always historically lower in by-elections. But to put it into context, 2 years ago, Scottish Labour was 32 points behind the SNP. 2 years on, we've won our first parliamentary by-election for 12 years. We've got double the SNP share of the vote and over 20% swing. But the point I would like to make is, look, this is not about us gloating or thinking the job is done. Far from it. We still have a mountain to climb. We've still got lots of work to do. Our feet have to remain firmly on the ground. And the same energy, hard work and humility we have shown in the last 2 years, we have to continue to show, indeed ramp up, between now and the next general election and now and the next Scottish Parliament election, so we can earn people's trust, earn their support and transform our country in the process.
Why should people trust Keir Starmer? He's U-turned on ending the two-child benefit cap. He's U-turned on commitments to nationalise public services. He's U-turned on plans to scrap university tuition fees. You know, what level of trust is there?
Look, I think the point to make here is, when you lose a general election and you have your worst result since the 1930s, then you have two choices. You can either choose to blame the electorate, or you can recognise that your party wasn't good enough and they have to change. And I think the transformational change that Keir has made to our party in the last 3 years has taken us from a position of that worst defeat since the 1930s to now us having a genuine opportunity and chance to rid not just Scotland but the whole UK of this rotten, economically illiterate, morally bankrupt Tory government. And I think that's a message that people are getting behind. And I think what you're right to suggest is, look, what Labour has to do is, of course, persuade people that the Tories and the SNP deserve to lose, but we also have to persuade people that Labour deserves to win. And you've seen over the course of the last few months, you'll see at this conference, you'll hear from Keir's speech today, and every day between now and the next general election, what that change means in practice. So not only do we get rid of this rotten government...
We're not hearing huge levels of what it means in practice.
Well, I can give you some examples. I'm happy to give some examples.
We keep being told that he's a safe pair of hands. He's really not setting the heather alight. I've heard him described as bland and boring here at conference.
Well, look, anyone that... Look, it's easy to be critical. But I think if you look at where he has taken the Labour Party in 3 years is absolutely phenomenal. And just on the point of change, a new deal for working people, as Paul Novak, the General Secretary of the TUC, has said, the biggest transformation in workers' rights in a generation, where we end the exploitative zero-hour contracts, we scrap fire and rehire, we give a genuine, not minimum wage, a genuine living wage to people across the country so we can tackle in-work poverty, and we give employment rights on day one. That's a fundamental new deal for working people. How we stop the horrific Rwanda policy and the far-right tactics of the Conservative Party, the culture war, and instead have a proper managed immigration system and bring a decency and integrity back into our politics. How we scrap the non-dom tax status, which frankly the Prime Minister himself has benefited from, and use that money to invest in the NHS workforce.
You're going to need more money than just that tax being scrapped, aren't you? Where are you getting extra money for an awful lot of your policies?
I think the biggest bit is growth. The moment we have, sadly, a Scottish government and a UK government that don't chase growth and are using income taxes as a substitute for that economic growth. How we grow our tax base, how we get more money to spend on our economy, is getting stability in our economy, going desperately for growth, getting the growth we need in our country, and the fruits of that growth.
How soon does that happen, though? You can't do that in year one of a new government, can you?
Well, you're right to say, look, growth doesn't happen overnight. I completely accept that. But it's interesting, speaking to so many businesses that are here at this conference, to so many people that are in and around conference that have investments right around the world, they themselves are saying, look, Britain's role and Britain's image in the world changes as soon as you remove this Tory government. If you go back to having a UK that wants to be a partner with the world, that wants to look outwards rather than inwards, automatically the reset happens and you will attract more investment into the country. Of course, we've got to build upon that with the right policy platform. GB Energy being another fundamental example of that, a publicly owned energy generation company that will be headquartered in Scotland, creating jobs in Scotland, lowering bills in Scotland, but also leveraging in all that international investment and private sector investment to unleash Scotland's green potential.
How do you persuade, because if you're going to do all of this and you're going to need Scottish votes to do any of it at the general election, how do you persuade SNP voters to vote for Labour now?
Well, I actually think it's only Labour that's the party of persuasion now in Scotland. And my message to people...
You're still not offering them anything on the constitutional issue.
Well, I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's fundamentally what drives them as his sole issue. I think people can see that the Labour Party is reaching out. I've said previously, I don't care how people have voted in previous elections. I don't care how they voted in the yes or no referendum.
They care about independence.
I absolutely get that. But if you look at what Alex Salmond did in 2007, he didn't say the vast majority of Scotland opposes independence, so therefore I'm going to change my constitutional position. So I don't support independence, I don't support a referendum, but I'm not going to shut my eyes or close my arms to people who voted yes in the referendum, because so many of those people that voted yes did so because they want to run a million miles away from this rotten Tory government. We have an alternative.
That's still you being the least worst option. You haven't given them a reason to vote for you in terms of the constitutional issue. Even throw them something like we will look at it again at a certain point when support for independence is 60% in the polls.
I think Rutherglen Hamilton West proves that wrong. But we have said we will transform the UK. We have said that we will strengthen the nations and regions of the United Kingdom. You will hear already from the trail of Keir's speech how he's talking about strengthening cities in England. Why aren't we having that same discussion and debate in Scotland? Why are we centralising in the Scottish Parliament? So of course I want to push power out of Westminster. Of course I want more power to come to Scotland. But that doesn't mean power just going and being sucked up in Edinburgh, Holyrood. How do we look at strengthening local government? How do we look at strengthening cities and towns? How do we strengthen the regions within Scotland? And through unleashing that power, sharing that power and that wealth and that opportunity, I believe we can transform Scotland.
Anna Sarwar, leader of Scottish Labour, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.